So we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are on chapter 24, page number 246 of the book and page number 261 of the PDF.
Healing past life traumas on etheric and ketheric template levels of the aura. To heal a structural problem in the aura caused by a past life, you follow the same procedure as healing any structural problem on the template level as described in chapter 22. The important difference here is that as soon as the healer knows the trauma is from a past life, the healer must help the client connect present life issues to the past life experience.
Okay, so now why is this important? Because there's a resonance factor, right? Anything that is stuck in the field will cause a resonance effect in the life over here. So if there is a trauma which is stuck in the previous life, it is having a resonant field over here, and you need to connect the two so that resolution can take place. Okay, this is very important. Like today, if we are, this is why past life, past life regression has become so popular that today, if you are having a problem in today's life, you can connect it to something that was happening in a previous life. And if you understand what was happening, then it gets healed over here. This is one of the reasons why past life regression has suddenly become so very popular.
The structural problems on this level of the aura from past lifetimes usually result in congenital problems in the physical body. These issues are very important to deal with as they are held very tightly and deeply within the soul substance of the individual. It is clear that part of the main task of the individual with birth-related problems is to deal with that problem both on the physical level and the psychodynamic level.
So this becomes important, okay? So we have various levels of the aura, and the same issue can be reflected in different areas of the aura. This is something that when we are doing biofield tuning also, it can be found in different layers, in different lines of the aura, and it keeps coming again and again till it is totally eradicated, the block is totally removed from the system. So you have a physical issue and you have an etheric, or you have a biodynamic issue also.
This work will then lead to the spiritual issue that the soul has incarnated to resolve in the first place. It is important for the healer to keep in mind the scope of the work that is being done.
One second. So again, ultimately, why have we come here? We have come here to evolve spiritually, right? This is the basic point. And ultimately, everything that we are doing is to connect with that oneness. Shivangla, slow down a little bit, please. Okay, so we are here to connect with that oneness. So everything that we do has a spiritual essence to it. Maybe you don't realize it, but that is the end game.
The object is not only to heal the physical body, although that is what usually brings the client to the healer in the first place. The object is to heal the soul. On the template level, it is to straighten the auric field and realign it with its natural flow, the universal flow of all life.
So again, any kind of physical manifestation of a disease or a trauma or a pain or an imbalance is something which is happening in the auric or the etheric or the biodynamic level also. Ultimately, the game is to align, to get into the flow, to allow things to happen, to get into the track which we have come here to experience, getting out of the small ego mind and allowing things to manifest for ourselves.
In the case of a young man named John that follows, I first saw the structural problems in the aura. I also saw a picture of the past life scene that was related to the auric wound. Figures 24.1 to 24.5 are drawings of the healing work that followed. This young man didn't tell me ahead of time what the problem was. Figure 24.1 shows what his field on the Ketherick template looked like when he arrived. Compare it to figure 713 in chapter 7, which shows what the normal field on the Ketherick template level looks like. Instead of beautiful golden fibers forming the spinning petals of the chakras at his solar plexus, John had a formation that looked rather like a sunspot. A large mass of tangled red, yellow, and black energy created little whirlpools flowing off from it that appeared mostly in gray. Most of the other chakras were intact and are not shown here.
Shivangla, just go back to the colored plates so that we can see this. This is on page 44 onwards. So just remember this page number. Page 262. Go back to page 44. Oh, 34 में आ गया. Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, just keep going. The colored pictures will come. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. More. 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 One more. Okay. Now make it smaller, the picture. So this is what she was saying, that red whirlpool is stuck energy. And in the other picture, you can see the smaller gray whirlpools which are there, which needed to be healed. And it represents the previous life trauma. You can go ahead now, 262, page 262. Yeah.
The main vertical golden power current that runs up and down the spine had a large deviation to the right towards the sunspot area and was very dark in that area. Small gray secondary whirlpools formed on the rear part of the aura too. As John talked about his life, I suddenly saw him in a past life sometime around the era of Genghis Khan. The scene was in a battle where he was lustfully killing a soldier from the other army with a hand weapon. He had a rod with a chain, and on the end of the chain was a metal ball with spikes, with which he impaled his enemy's head. At the same time this happened, the enemy was plunging a lance into John's solar plexus. Both were killed in this interaction. This experience left him with the belief that any lusty, powerful expression of the life force energy leads to injury and death.
So again, past life trauma is creating a trauma here. It's creating an experience here. When we understand that, it can heal the trauma here. Or it can work vice versa. If we understand and heal it here, it will heal it there also. It can work in both ways. That is my experience of it.
In this lifetime, John tended to hold back any strong integrated expression of the life force from within him. Instead, he divided his power into separate parts for expression. His profession of directing plays served as a tool to help integrate the parts of himself. By expressing different aspects of strong life force in the different characters in the different plays, he could experience the results of what a particular expression caused. Thus, his plays gave him many lifelike experiences to help him learn how to express his power.
So again, we can always use coping mechanisms to help us, right? But unless we really clear the field, real healing does not take place.
When he came into the office, I was unaware that John had scoliosis until he turned around and I could see it with a regular sight. He had been born with it and had never had an operation to straighten his spine. Thus, my interpretation was that this congenital disease was a direct outcome of that past life.
So again, the spine was a little bent. Okay, like it was being seen where that the stab wound was there, so the spinal column bent. And the main channel of energy coming through the field was also slightly bent in that area.
In the healing sequence, after chelation, I used a crystal to scoop out the stagnated energy in the wound near the solar plexus, figure 24-2. This stagnated energy was from the auric bodies 2 and 4. The crystal works very well for this purpose and speeds up the process of cleansing. It also protects the healer from absorbing any of this stagnated energy.
So again, crystals, each crystal has its own field, right? In biofield tuning, we use a lot of these luminary crystals, quartz crystals, which actually have lines and they work very well. You can get big pieces of it and you use it to cleanse and to even enhance the frequency being generated by the tuning fork. I use toning more. I don't use crystals so much, but many of the other practitioners do use a lot of crystals in the healing process. And of course, crystal therapy is a entire range and therapy with itself. We had a lot of talks by Dr. Brian Daly in our 915 talks. And he has, I think, one of the largest crystal collections that I've ever seen with anyone, and has amazing information and knowledge. Let me see if we can, actually, we could replay his, the talk that he had given also. We can do that and just see what he is talking about.
Figure 24-3 shows what could be seen once a lot of the stagnated energy from the second and fourth auric levels had been cleared. I found the lance embedded in his solar plexus on the fifth energy level or etheric template level. The handle of the lance was completely embedded within the auric field and curled into a spiral. To remove it, first I had to straighten the handle and then yank out the lance with the handle, clean the wound more and revitalize the area.
So again, what happens is that these spikes, etc., there, even in shamanic healing, you actually remove these spikes. The helping spirit comes and removes the spike. I've had a few encounters. In fact, in one of the biotuning sessions recently, there was this energy can get stuck like a rope. You pull the entire rope out. What she's saying, the lance had to be straightened out and then pulled out or yanked out of the auric field. Many times you will feel that. Sometimes there's a clogging of energy which you extract. Sometimes it's like mucus you extract. Sometimes it's these strings which form and start getting embedded. You have to just yank it out.
In the next few healings that followed, I worked with the guides to restructure the aura on the Ketheric template or seventh auric level. First, I restructured the template of the organs in that area and then the chakra. Figure 24-4 shows what I see while doing the chakra restructuring.
Okay, so again, what happens? The energy has gone through, so the organs are also affected. So you're repairing the organs at a higher level, at one of the higher levels of the auric field, and then repairing at the physical level also at the lower levels of the auric field.
Tiny lines of gold white light come out of my fingertips, which move very rapidly to weave a golden structure of vortices that constitute the structure of that chakra. The blue etheric level, first auric layer, is then filled in and rests upon the golden level, just as the cells of the body rest upon the blue lower etheric level. After restructuring the chakra, then looks like figure 24-5. A beautiful lotus of golden spinning vortices.
Just show the figures.
Where is it?
It's one page up. So here the hand is healing the chakras, right? And the one hand is reconnecting the chakra into the main spinal column, and the other is healing the minor chakras within the bigger chakra. Go down. Just go down a little bit, Shivani. Not one page, half a page. ऊपर जाना होगा ना. So this is the chakra after it has been healed. Just 1 second, someone's making a racket.
Thus, when the set of healings was completed, my client again looked like figure 713 in chapter 7, with a complete set of functioning chakras and main power current. During the 5 or so sessions that it took to do this work, the client progressively felt more freedom of movement in that area of his body. He felt less tension in the muscles of the back that he used to compensate for his imbalanced field. He also said that he felt more freedom in his personal life.
So this is something that everyone experiences. When the field gets cleared, you start experiencing lightness in the body, a freedom of movement, a freedom in all aspects of your life. Things start to actually open up. And this again and again we are experiencing even with biofield tuning. But again, all these healings, if it is done properly, whether it's pranic healing, Reiki, there's so many other methods of healing. If that healing is done clearly and the auric field gets cleared up, then the shift is automatically perceptible.
I saw him a month later for a checkup to make sure everything held, and then referred him to someone who works primarily on the body level for further physical restructuring now that the energy restructuring was completed. Just how much straighter his spine will become is questionable. This would take a lot of very deep healing.
Okay, so now what does this imply? Once you see, you can heal something at the physical level, but if at the etheric level or the auric level it is not healed, then the problem will recur. So you have to have a full spectrum kind of a healing where you're healing the biodynamic energies as well as you're taking care of the physical aspect of whatever is needed to be healed. Both have to work hand in hand.
Healing past life bands in the Ketric template layer. As noted earlier, another way to read past lives is simply to put your hands into the bands of color that appear at the Ketric or eggshell level of the aura. By doing this and tuning into the energy there, you can see the past lives flow before your eyes.
See, now everything that we experience, right, is in the etheric templates. It is there in the biodynamic field. The point is that you have to just have that vision, that ability, that perception to actually perceive it. That's all, right? Once you can start perceiving it, then everything gets available to you, including whatever you have learned in your past life, because we are living in a holographic kind of a eggshell. Let's put it that way.
The past life band that is relevant to what is happening right now in the person's present life is found around the face and neck area of the client and in the aura about 2.5 to 3 feet out. By putting your hands above the face and following the band to the right with the right hand and to the left with the left hand, you can see the past life pass by in linear time. Just what you do with this information is very important. Again, it is not good to expose the client to something he is not ready for.
So this is very important, right? Many times a client, something is coming up and the client is not ready to receive it. So the healer has to be able to tell the client anything that needs to be told in a way that will become palatable to the client. We are here to remove stress. We are here not to create stress, right? So if we are landing up creating stress for the client, then better not do the session. So how are you going to explain and tell the client? What are you going to tell the client? That you have to be very, very clear about when we are getting into any kind of healing. माने जोर का झटका धीरे से. Basically, that's the game that we need to play.
If the client has done a lot of purification work on himself, then it may be okay to let him know what is there. It may be very related to his present life. I would never give this information out unless I was very familiar with the client's process and knew that he was ready for it. I have done very little to change these past life bands and think that very little should be done with them. I sometimes run my hands through them to make them clearer or lighten them when they appear to be burdened. At times, I have seen the energy in such a band all bunched up, in which case I usually spread it out along the band. The person usually feels some relief and a lightening of his load when I do this. It is my impression that these bands are related to the task the person has undertaken in this lifetime and needs to do in order to grow. Many times I get the sense that I am invading a very private personal space when I reach into these areas, so I withdraw from them. It is very important for the healer to respect the power of the work that the client is doing in these high levels of the field and only do what the healer and client are ready for. This is actually a general rule for working on all levels of the aura. Respect the work and humility of your position in the great scheme of the universe while always focusing on unconditional love, the greatest healer of all.
So again, the healer always has to operate from unconditional love, right? Do your best. Again, intent. What are you intending to do? Where are you coming from? What is the level of consciousness that you are operating from? Starts to become very important in these cases.
Self-healing and the spiritual healer. Physician, heal thyself, Jesus.
So this becomes very important, right? The physician, the healer also has to be operating in a state of wellness. If the healer is not well, then the healer should not be healing. Okay.
Transformation and self-responsibility. You and only you are responsible for your health. If you have a physical problem, you must make the final decision to follow a particular curative program. Only with the greatest of care should you make these decisions. To start with, you choose from a vast array of help available to you. Whom do you trust? How long do you follow a cure when you cannot tell whether or not it is working? These questions can only be answered from your deep searching for what is right for you.
So again, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. This is again something that we learned in zero limits when we were learning zero limits. We are responsible for anything that comes into our awareness. So naturally, our body is in our awareness. Our etheric field technically is in our awareness. So we must take responsibility for it.
If you don't trust a diagnosis, there is nothing wrong with a second or third opinion or another technique altogether. If you are confused about what has been said to you about your particular ailment, ask the doctor more questions, find some books, learn about what you are involved with. Take charge of your health. Most of all, do not let yourself be limited by a negative prognosis. Rather, take it as a message to look deeper into yourself and wider into the available alternative methods.
So this becomes important, right? Many people get bogged down by a negative prognosis, but anything that happens to us happens for a reason. If we can learn the lesson from whatever is happening to us, we can actually, in most cases, transcend it, right? And create healing for ourselves.
Standard Western medicine has many answers, but not all. If it is not efficient in curing a certain disease, then look elsewhere.
So again, allopathy is a failure against chronic diseases. It doesn't work, right? The so-called alternate therapies work better with chronic issues, with emergency issues, with operations, all these kinds of things. Allopathy definitely works better.
If it is not efficient in curing a disease, then look elsewhere. Cover all bases. You will be surprised about how much there is to learn about yourself and your health. The search will change your life in ways you would never expect. I have met many people whose illness has eventually brought them great joy, a deep understanding and appreciation of life, and the fulfillment they were not able to achieve before becoming ill.
So every kind of sickness has a message. In fact, there are books also which indicate that if you're having a certain issue, it is reflecting this or it is reflecting that. And if you can get insight into that, then automatically when you start paying attention to that which is causing the illness will also disappear.
If we can only change our attitude towards illness to one of acceptance and understanding that it is a message to be learned from, we would alleviate a great deal of fear that we have about illness, not only on a personal level, but perhaps on a national or global scale as well.
So again, it's all about the attitude, right? Which side of the grid are we operating from? That becomes very important. What is the state of consciousness we are operating from? What is the level of consciousness? Once we start operating from the right side, we start operating above 200, a lot of our issues will automatically start getting taken care of.
If we can only change our attitude towards illness to one of acceptance and understanding that it is a message to be learned from, we would alleviate a great deal of fear that we have about illness, not only on a personal level, but perhaps on a national or global scale as well. In this section, I will present my suggestions on how to maintain your health. This includes daily practices from which to choose, as well as comments on diet, space, and clothing. But most of all, you need to love to maintain your health. Self-love is the greatest healer, and self-love also requires daily practice.
Okay, so again, our space, our mental attitudes, our emotional state, our mental state, right? All these things, our family units, everything plays a part in our health. But at the end of the day, it is all about love.
If you have a physical problem, sorry,
You have to go down.
the face of the new medicine, patient becomes healer. As our view of illness changes, so does our way of treating it. As we become more efficient in diagnosis and treating illness, we can individualize our curative programs more. Each individual is unique and requires a slightly different combination of agents used in the healing process. Each healing session is different. The healer must be prepared with a wide background of information, lots of love, and good contact with her spirit guides in healing and in channeling.
So again, there's so many different modalities, right? But the most important thing in my view is to be able to be guided as to what to do, because there are so many permutations and combinations, so many options that we have. Ultimately, it is guidance which plays that intuitive ability, right? The downloads which actually take a very important part in the whole healing process.
As we move into a more refined way of doing healing, the practice becomes an art. Here is a detailed case study of a patient I worked with for over 2 years that demonstrates what I think is a small peek at what is ahead of for us.
So again, healing becomes an art. You learn from various principles, you learn from various people, but ultimately you have to make it your own and develop your own method of healing, right? And it is art. There is no guideline that, okay, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. 1 plus 1 can equal to 4, it can equal to 8, it can equal to 16 when we are getting into these practices. A small thing can create a huge shift, and a huge thing can create a small shift or no shift at all.
I have chosen David because his work illustrates all levels and phases of healing. It shows how deep healing can go into the structure of a personality when it is done over a long period of time. Hewen has said that the precise substance taken in the precise amount at the precise time acts as a transformative substance.
Now, this is important, right? All the drugs that we get or we take are basically synthesis of what chemicals the body itself produces, right? But when we take it orally or we take it intravenously out from outside, the precise amount and the precise timing is not regulated in the way that the body itself can regulate. When the body produces those same chemicals, it regulates the dose, it regulates the quantity, it regulates the timing. And that's what makes the internal body process in the process of healing much more effective than external help, provided we can activate that inner healer. This is what he's talking about over here, or rather she is talking about.
In this case study, I use a combination of laying on of hands, direct accessing of information, and psychodynamic analysis. These combined with the patient's own initiative and self-responsibility effected not only a cure of the illness, but also very deep life changes.
So what does she say over here? Patient, a combination of laying of hands, direct accessing information, which is intuition, and psychodynamic analysis, which is also called where you are discussing with the client. You're explaining processes to the client and asking him to do stuff. And naturally, the client has to take responsibility to do what has been told to the client. Otherwise, again, healing will not take place.
These profound changes were only possible because the patient took full responsibility of his healing. Finding the initiating cause of an illness is always a key part of a healing. Direct accessing of information is always an invaluable tool for this.
So, what does this imply, right? the client has to take responsibility for the healing. Okay, but we need to find the epicenter. We need to find where the issue started from to be able to actually heal it from the deepest part of where it originated from. Okay, this is very, very important. Now again, intuition plays a huge part in this entire game. If intuitive ability is there, then you can get direct access to what is happening. And believe me when I tell you this, I'm always flabbergasted when we do timeline in biofield tuning. The stuff which comes out is so fantastic that, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know, some people here may have experienced the biofield tuning, but like, you had a tough time at this time. You had a relationship, it broke. You fell sick. You changed schools. You changed a house. A loved one died. You had a fight with a very good friend. Uh, uh, you were in love with someone, but you didn't talk to that person. The things which come out and at precisely the right time of your life is actually very, very fascinating. Okay, Shimangla has to catch a flight. So today we'll stop here. We can keep chatting for some time.
We can complete this paragraph.
Yeah, okay.
In the case presented, the cause of the illness is discussed from the point of view of the physical life circumstance, the psychodynamics involved, the patient's belief systems, and the patient's spiritual life plan.
So again, this becomes important, right? The patient's spiritual life plan. Ultimately, that is the net game that we need to play. What is it the patient, or what has the patient's soul come here to do? And that can only happen, that access can only happen when we are going into higher states of consciousness and actually delving deeper into the psyche of the person concerned. So we'll stop here today.